Hello everyone, welcome to yet another episode of Polity Quick Revision series. So in this video, we'll talk specifically about one of the most important offices in the central government, and that is that of the Prime Minister. So here we'll take a look at the office of Prime Minister, the appointment of the Prime Minister, the powers and functions associated with the office, his relationship with the President, and many more such things. Finally, we'll also take a look at some interesting questions from this particular topic. So without any further delay, let's get started.
But हमारे system में, and if you guys see, you have Council of Ministers and the PM, right? Are they executive or are they the legislature?
Executive.
Okay, so they are the executive. So, but are they not part of the legislature? In fact, in parliament, you have the same people sitting in. In fact, they do vote as well when it comes to bills and acts, conversion of bills to acts. So meaning there is a slight overlap. Your Prime Minister, Council of Ministers are going to be part of your executive. They are part of your sort of legislature as well. In fact, if you see your Lok Sabha, when I say Lok Sabha, who sits here generally? Is it the President? This is how it will be. Okay, you have seats here. Okay, this part will be government, executive. Okay, plus the other parties who are not part of the executive, other party members who are not part of the executive. Okay, so there'll be a little more, let's say 60%. And then here you have opposition parties. All of these guys put together become your legislature. But however, even the executive, the Council of Ministers and the Prime Minister, or the they are also going to be part of your legislature. So, you know, there is an overlap when it comes to your parliamentary form of government. Okay, now, again, these are things that you would probably read in parliamentary system. Please do read that, especially, you know, before going into mains. Okay, you will have to sort of create a lot of these points by yourself. Okay. Prelims is easier. Why is prelims easy? Prelims is easier because the answers are right in front of you. All you've got to do is sort of identify the answers. In mains, there is nothing given. Everything has to be sort of made up by you. You have to fill in those 2 to 3 pages per question. Okay, 50 pages are something that you have to write on your own. Okay, so India mein, you understand what is de jure and then what is your de facto, right? When it comes to appointment of the Prime Minister, how is the Prime Minister sort of appointed? The Constitution does not contain any specific procedure for selection and appointment of the Prime Minister, but there are certain articles that discuss this. You have Article 74, 75, and 78 that generally deal with your Prime Minister, your Council of Ministers, you know, the role of the President, you know, with regard to this particular process. Now, this does not imply that the President is free to appoint anyone as a Prime Minister. Generally, what happens is, according to the conventions of the parliamentary system of government, the president will appoint the leader of the majority party in the Lok Sabha as the Prime Minister. Okay, and when I talk about chief minister, what is it going to be? The governor, according to the system, the conventions in the parliamentary system, the governor will appoint the leader of the majority party in the Lok Sabha. But let us say that the majority party does not have the minimum requisite, which is 50% plus 1. Then what do? Then at that particular point, we just talked about the situational discretions. The president can exercise his personal discretion. Okay, remember. So a lot of these things will be repeated in multiple chapters. His personal discretion in the selection appointment of the Prime Minister. For instance, in 1998, I believe, when Atal Bihari Vajpayee did not have the requisite majority, he was asked to see if he had the ability within a certain period of time. Do you think you can actually bring the members who've been elected, okay, and form some sort of a government, okay, a stable government? If you can, great, you get to be the Prime Minister. If not, then again, you know, because of an hung sort of a parliament, we might have to go for fresh elections. So in such a situation, the president usually appoints the leader of the largest party or the largest coalition. What is the difference between a party and a coalition?
A coalition is a group of parties.
Yeah, so generally what you would see is that sometime before the election, they will form some sort of coalition. And there are benefits to forming coalitions. In every state, you will have certain parties. There are the major parties, you will have some smaller parties, but the smaller parties may not be able to win by themselves. But in every single constituencies or in certain constituencies, they will command a good number of votes. So if they come together, there is a chance that they can cross 50+1. But however, if they compete by themselves, that could spell trouble because they are splitting their votes. So they will form a coalition sometimes even before. And that is why when you see your central elections, sometimes have you seen UPA, NDA? Okay, but the party here is, the major party here used to be INC. In NDA, it is the BJP. But these are not the terms that you hear. You talk about UPA and the NDA. So we're talking about the alliances and the coalitions that are formed. Okay, so let that be clear. So the majority party, the president usually appoints the leader of the largest party or the coalition in the Lok Sabha as the prime minister and asks him to seek a vote of confidence in the House within a month. Now, this is another sort of an important area. So, within a month. Okay, and this discretion was exercised by, the president for the first time, Neelam Sanjeev Reddy. Okay, he was from Anantapur district of Andhra Pradesh. Okay, and he appointed Sharan Singh, the coalition leader, as the prime minister, and so on and so forth. Okay, some examples, you can read those. So what is the time period you have for you to try to sort of, do some back channel negotiation and to be able to prove your majority? You have a total of 1 month. Okay, 1 month. Just remember that, okay, because you're going to see questions after this regarding that. Now, can you be appointed as a chief minister or a prime minister? Okay, if you've not been elected. What if you lose the election? Can you become a prime minister, chief minister?
That person has to prove himself in another constituency, sir.
He has to prove himself in another constituency. Let us say that no constituency is going for election. Then what happens?
A person has to resign from a constituency. Example, Mamata Banerjee.
Mamata Banerjee is the chief minister of Bengal, but she lost the election to Subhendu Adhikari, right? So what happens now?
She has to go for an election in another constituency.
Okay. Okay. You will have by polls if somebody resigns from it or somebody dies after election, something like that you're saying. What if in the center you have, is there any other option?
I'm not sure, sir.
So there is another option, okay, but what you said is correct. Okay, but however, there is also another route, and that is your Rajya Sabha route. So you can get into Rajya Sabha. Okay, a minister can be from Rajya Sabha as well. A minister can be from Rajya Sabha as well, and it's easier to elect a person into Rajya Sabha because it is, you know how the elections are going to be. You're not going to the people for it. Okay, so Rajya Sabha route. Now, what if the state? Okay, let us say I'm talking about the CM. If it is a CM, you could have the upper house only if the upper house sort of exists there. Now, if you look at Bengal, Bengal does not have an upper house. Is that right? Bengal does not have an upper house. So she has no other option but to go for election again in whichever. Because I remember there are some people who contested, but they passed away or something like that, if I remember right. Okay, so that is that. So keep that in mind. Now, what are the powers? What are the functions of this Prime Minister / Chief Minister? See, these are statements that you want to know well. Familiarity. Because if there is a question about this particular topic, you will notice that the options will be exactly from here. Okay, in fact, even the wordings might be the same. Okay, so if you've read this a few times, you will know exactly, yes, this kind of a sentence, I have read it. So that means it is true. I cannot eliminate it. This is going to be one of my options in my answer. Okay. Okay, so he recommends persons who can be appointed as ministers by the president. Okay, so true or false, guys? The chief minister appoints the other ministers, or the prime minister appoints the other ministers, whether it is your finance minister, your environment minister, your law minister.
True.
True. Okay, Aishwarya says true. Anybody else? Your logic is correct. Okay, it is going to be Narendra Modi who is going to decide who is working well, are they performing well? If not, let me remove them. Let me try to place somebody else who I think can perform, who have the ability to perform. Right, same thing for a let us say a state. Okay, same thing. But however, that is not how it works. The prime minister, look at the exact wording. The prime minister is going to recommend persons who can be appointed as ministers, and who is appointing them?
The president.
Okay, so these are the finer sort of points. Okay, these are the finer sort of points that we tend to. So obviously, if you think about it, you know what is happening around. Recently, there was a reshuffle of the cabinet, okay, of the Council of Ministers. A lot of people lost their ministries. Example, I think Prakash Javadekar, right? You had your, who's the Ravi Shankar, right? He had lost his position in IT ministry, I guess, right? And similarly, you saw new guns coming in, Jyotiraditya Sandhya, right? You saw all of that. So that means all of those decisions were sort of taken by the prime minister. But however, he recommends the persons who can be appointed, but the appointment is always made by the president. So the president can only appoint those persons only if it is recommended by the prime minister. So the president has very little role. The president only appoints. It's a formality. The choice is by the prime minister. Is that clear? Okay. I hope you will not sort of be confused after this. Okay. And he allocates and reshuffles various portfolios amongst the ministers. Again, I tell you, right? So I just try to put a face to these sort of topics. So didn't, our prime minister recently allocate and reshuffle the kind of portfolios that were there? Of course he did. Okay. So he had decided to change some ministers and add new ministers. He or she can ask a minister to resign and advise the president to dismiss him in case of difference of opinion. Okay, because the prime minister is the key. The prime minister is going to choose who is going to be the finance minister, environment minister, law minister, sports minister. Okay, not the other way around. He or she presides over the meeting of council of ministers and influences the decisions. Okay, the activities of all the ministers. Who is finally responsible? He has to be the one who is guiding them, directing them, controlling them, and coordinating their activities. And finally, he can bring about the collapse of the Council of Ministers if he resigns. So you cannot have a Council of Ministers, okay, when the Prime Minister or the Chief Minister itself resigns. Is that clear? Now vis-a-vis the President. Okay, vis-a-vis the President. What is the exact role of the Prime Minister? What exactly is the role of the President? Let's take a look at this. So the Prime Minister enjoys the following powers in relation to the President. Now remember this thing, again, we are going to take a look at this in a few chapters. One chapter is going to be a Parliament chapter, okay, which we will talk about all the important areas that we have not covered in these chapters. It is going to be mentioned in your president's chapter. It is going to be mentioned in your prime minister's chapter. And in fact, it is even going to be mentioned in your council of ministers chapter. Okay, so you will see these things many times, and you have to get that level of comfort and familiarity with it. So he or she is the principal channel of communication between whom? The president and the council of ministers. So you have the president, and then you have the CM, and then you have the council of ministers under him. Okay, so he is going to be the main channel of communication. Okay, and it is his responsibility to communicate to the president all the decisions of the council of ministers, especially with regards to the administration of the affairs of the union and any sort of proposals you have for the legislations. Apart from this, you have to furnish the information regarding the administration affairs, okay, of the union, and if it is a state, okay, the governor, okay, for the state, and the proposals for legislation as the president or the governor may call for. So providing or furnishing information. Second one is communicating, okay, between the president and the council of ministers. And then if the president so requires, sometimes, let us say a minister has taken a call. The president feels, hey, but however, I feel you guys should all consider this once again. Okay, the minister's decision. So what has happened is, let us say there is a minister. Okay, and then it somehow reaches president. The president decides that no, let's send it back to the council of ministers, and if you guys are all, just reconsider this once, okay, whether the minister's role, you guys are all okay, and then if it is okay, then you again bring it back to me. Okay, does that make sense? So this is about one minister taking a particular call, but that can be asked by the president to be reconsidered by the rest of the council of ministers if he feels that it has not been considered by the council yet. Does that make sense? And this is a good thing, right? Because otherwise, ministers are going to take a call and, the rest of them don't see eye to eye with it. It may not be good. So he advises the president with regard to appointment of certain positions. Okay. So the president, when he appoints, okay, he's going to appoint the Auditor General, CAG. He's going to appoint the Attorney General of India, okay, which is a law officer. The chairman and members of UPSC, election commissioners, okay, the finance commission, and a whole lot of these bodies. But that is not the president's decision. It is he acts with the aid and advice of the council of, the council of ministers, headed by the prime minister. Okay, headed by the prime minister. I hope that is clear. So this was in relation to the president, the role of the prime minister with regards to the president. Now let's take a look at the role of the prime minister with regard to, your parliamentary related activities. Okay, parliament. So what is parliament? Parliament is going to be, so who are the members in parliament? Parliament consists of
Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha.
Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha. Anybody else?
President.
Is president there, guys?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so president is also there. So you have your Lok Sabha, you have your Rajya Sabha, and you have your president. Can you tell me the logic behind why the president is also there in this?
He is not the member of either house of the parliament. In order to give assent to the bill, his signature is required. So that might be the reason.
Yeah, so that is very good. Manvi. Okay, so sorry, okay, Manvi. House 1 may, it is debated and then it is sent to House 2. Okay, so this is your bill. House 1, House 2, and then finally it is going to go to the president. And once the president approves of it, then you have your bill turning into an act. So this is the process. So yahan pe, remember, this is why, or this is a bill to your act has a big role by all the actors in your parliament, and that is your House 1, House 2, and the president. And the president again has certain roles to play here. He has some options, in his kitty. Okay. So the prime minister is the leader of the lower house. Is that always true? The Prime Minister is the leader of the lower house. Okay, anyways, leave that for now. We've talked about this before, right? Manmohan Singh was from the Rajya Sabha and he was elected from the Assam related quota. But however, he was responsible as the executive. The executive is responsible to the Lok Sabha. Now, it is his duty to advise the president with regard to, when to summon, when to prorogue the sessions of the parliament. He would recommend or she would recommend the dissolution of the Lok Sabha, to the president at any time. He can announce the policies on the floor of the house. So who announces the government policies and all on the floor of the house?
The Prime Minister.
Okay, again, very, very clear. So this was in regards. In terms of the other powers and functions, what are they? First of all, there is a body called the Niti Aayog, right? Previous to this, it was a planning commission. Planning commission was there. National Development Council was there. Not anymore. So you have National Integration Council, Interstate Council, National Water Resource Council, and these other bodies. Remember these: Niti Aayog, National Integration Council, NIC, Interstate Council, and National Water Resources Council. Okay, I'm just repeating this again: Niti Aayog, National Integration Council, Interstate Council, National Water Resources Council. Now, let me ask you a quick question. The Zonal Council. Who heads the Zonal Council?
Home Minister.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay, excellent. Now, that is not mentioned in this chapter, but however, which ones he does head is mentioned here, right? Which one he does head is mentioned here. Okay, so just keep that in mind. So this will be in which chapter? There's another chapter called Interstate Relations. I think it's chapter earlier on, okay, before the 15th chapter or something like that. Okay, so that is headed by the Home Minister. Okay, so he plays a significant role in shaping the foreign policy of the country, of course. So while you have S. Shankar at the moment, right, what should be India sort of take? Okay, how should India? So there is always an important sort of philosophy of the Prime Minister, the way the Prime Minister sort of sees how we should conduct, okay, how India should be conducting its foreign policy. Why so? Because generally it is the Prime Minister in whom we put in our faith. Okay, he is the one who actually brings in that manifesto and talks to us about the manifesto. This is what we are planning on doing. This is where we see India going. Okay, and that is the one that we sort of decide to elect, right? That is those are the kind of points on which we elect the members. So that is being executed by the Prime Minister. And again, he's the chief spokesperson for the union government. He's a crisis manager in chief, especially during political level, and during emergency situations. Do you guys know about flight IC-814?
It was hijacked to Afghanistan.
Yeah, so so that is the one. Okay, so it was Indian Airlines flight 814. It was coming from Nepal. Okay, it was supposed to land in Delhi, but unfortunately, somewhere in the middle in 1999, it was hijacked and it was flown. I think it went to Dubai once, and I guess it would. Basically, it went in some direction, and then it finally landed in Kandahar, right in your Afghanistan. And in order for us to get back our passengers safely, right? I think there are some documentaries that are still available on YouTube. We can watch it, right? I think somebody was shot, but most of them were sort of released. But for that, 3 of the terrorists were sort of released by India in order for us to exchange or swap. Okay, so 3 terrorists who had gone out, Okay, and one of them was responsible for Parliament attack. One of the other ones later on was responsible for the masterminding the 2008 26/11 attacks, and the other one was responsible for, do you guys know about the beheading of the journalist Daniel Pearl? So he was involved in that. Okay, so but we had caught all three of them. Okay, but they were released. Now at this particular point, if let us say we have a situation like this, in the US, they have a very clear policy: no negotiation with your terrorists. Okay, under no circumstances are we going to negotiate with terrorists. India does not have such a policy, right? In fact, what they would do is that, let us say there is a terrorist attack or something, and if they want to have some sort of a negotiation, they'll say no, but then they have their Navy SEALs, they have their army barracks or something like that, you have the Marine Force, so and the Navy, what is that? Navy SEALs, right? So they have these guys who go in and sort of try to kill them, the terrorists, and try to release as many people as possible. India, it is not like that. So at that particular point, 1999, Atal Bihari Vajpayee was the Prime Minister. So he called for an all-party meeting. What do you think that we should do? Do you think the terrorists that we have caught with so much difficulty, do you think it is time to release them in exchange for, getting our, civilians back? Or do you think that we should not release them? Finally, it was chosen. So the crisis manager-in-chief at the political level during such emergencies is going to be your Prime Minister. And how the Prime Minister is going to sort of respond to such emergencies, it probably shows the person's character, their sort of choice, their sort of, mindset. He could have taken a call by himself as well, but, he decided to call for an all-party meeting. Okay, so again, I'm trying to connect it to some events that have happened. But it's good that Rahul, and I'm sure that most of you remember this. I think there's a documentary on that. I'm not sure if they made a movie on that. Okay,
Yes, sir,
so
there are documentaries.
Documentaries, right? Yeah. There was a Sonam Kapoor movie, right? About some she's a stewardess, and is that based on this? I don't know if any of you have watched it. Do you guys watch Bollywood?
So are you talking about airlift?
Which one?
Airlift.
No, it's Neerja.
Neerja, right? Is that based on this? I have not watched the movie.
I guess no, so it's a different story.
It's a different sort of a story. Okay. Okay, it's a different kind of a story. Okay. So leave that. So not the best example. Okay, so and then he, as a leader of the nation, he meets various sections of people from different states. He receives memoranda. So basically, he's the leader of the party in power. He's the political head of all the services. So let us say, maybe exactly around a year and a half from now, you might be an IAS member, you might be an IFS, or you might be IPS. So services. Who is the political head of your services? It is going to be the Prime Minister. So while the elected representatives are trying to sort of, execute the policies that they said they will during the times of election, who are going to be the ones who are trying to execute it? It is going to be the permanent sort of executive. That is going to be the administrators, your IAS and IPS and IFS, and the second tier and the third tier sort of administrators as well. So the Prime Minister plays a very, very significant role. And that's why Ambedkar, he said that if any functionary under the Constitution can be compared with the US President, it is the Prime Minister. Okay, and not the President, because the President is going to be just a nominal head, right? Only a nominal head. Now, now that you understood this, so again, about these things, remember this is about familiarity, not as much as logic. So for instance, is he the chief spokesperson for the union government? No, they have different sort of spokesperson for it, right? But don't think in that manner. Okay, if it is, just remember these sentences still. Is he the crisis manager-in-chief? Is there any sort of like official title like this? No, but remember that you have read that he's the crisis manager-in-chief. Okay, is he the leader of the party in power? So for instance, it's always the leader of the party in power. If you look at the BJP, the president of your BJP is going to be a different person. Okay, and the Prime Minister is going to be a different person. Okay, but again, what have you read in Laxmikanth? He is a leader of the party in power. Okay, so think a better example would be Mamata Banerjee. right? Mamata Banerjee is the president of a party. At the same time, she was the chief minister as well. Jayalalitha was another example. She was everything in AIDMK, and then she was a chief minister as well. Okay, so things like that. So keep these things in mind. Now that we've studied it like this, let's also take a look at, I mentioned a few articles, right? You have your article 74, 75, 78. What are these? Okay, now what we've already discussed is going to be mentioned in terms of articles. Okay, so do you have to remember these articles? They're not going to quiz you on the article numbers. They're not going to quiz you on the article numbers, but these are going to be some value addition for you that can be utilized, okay, in your favor during your means. Okay, but I'm not a big, I don't generally recommend that, you focus more on technicalities, but you focus more on assessing situations, analyzing things better, being a little more analytical. Okay, so having said that, let's take a look at what comes under your Article 74. 74 may, there shall be a council of ministers with the prime minister as the head to aid and advise the president, right? Now we've already seen this. Now we're only linking it to Article 74, so it is there in your constitution, right? Now, not only that, the president in the exercise of his functions, except for a few scenarios that we've already discussed prior, right? He has to act in accordance with the advice rendered by the Council of Ministers headed by the Prime Minister. Is that clear? So the president's sort of activities are going to be the Council of Ministers headed by the Prime Minister, their sort of activities, their sort of decisions. As a nominal head, he only authorizes them. Okay, he only signs on them. So the president may also require the Council of Ministers to reconsider such advice, and the president shall act in accordance with the advice tendered. So I can, let's say I'm the president and you guys are the executive. I can say, hey, why don't you just take a look at this? Are you sure you want to go ahead with something like this? You might probably go and you might discuss amongst yourself in a huddle, and then you come back to me and you're like, yes, this is the way we want to go. As the president, I'm not going to have a choice. I'm like, okay, if that is what you want, you are the ones who have been elected by the people. So I guess we go with what you want. Okay, I hope that is clear. Article number 75. So the prime minister shall be appointed by the president, and the other minister should be appointed by the president. If you remember this, I had quizzed you, right? The minister shall be appointed by whom? The appointment is by the president, okay, but the reco is by the PM. Okay, that is what they say as advice. On the advice of the prime minister. So the minister shall hold office during the pleasure of the president. Okay, during the pleasure of the president. The council of the ministers, the COMs, shall be collectively responsible to the House of the People. What about if the ministers are from Rajya Sabha? Which house are they going to be collectively responsible to? Even if the minister is from Rajya Sabha?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now I'm going to introduce the term, or I'm going to highlight the term collective responsibility. Okay, and you will see these terms come in. Okay, you will see these terms come in again and again. So if there is collective responsibility, you also have to have individual responsibility. Individual responsibility. Individual responsibility. So what is collective responsibility? Collective responsibility means you sink or swim together, you succeed together, you fall together. Individual responsibility is, okay, we are collectively responsible to the lower house, that is your Lok Sabha. Or if it is the state, you're responsible to the assembly, not to the council. But however, as a minister, you also have certain individual responsibilities. For instance, if you're the finance minister, what is your responsibility, guys? Can you tell me one important responsibility of the finance minister? Who's the finance minister? Put a face to these theoretical terms. And please tell me what is one responsibility of that particular finance minister?
Budget preparation.
And the exact term for the budget given in our constitution is?
Financial statement.
Very close. Okay, very close, but it's annual financial statement, Article 112. Okay, so this has to be late. In fact, like, that is definitely, that is one day in which we see the finance minister giving a live speech, right? In the early part of the year, right? You must have seen. It used to be Arun Jaitley before this. Now it is Nirmala Sitharaman ji, right? Before that, you had somebody else. For the longest duration, you had Chidambaram. Okay, M.A. No, not M.A. Chidambaram. What's his name? Palaniyappan Chidambaram, right? So he's been the finance minister for quite some time. So they have individual responsibility. Now, let us say individually you do not sort of deliver. Okay, the quality of your work is sort of, questionable. What would we do? The prime minister can sort of reshuffle the portfolios. He can remove the portfolio. He can, introduce somebody else. He can sort of exchange portfolios, right? So we talked about that again. So we are trying to link the same topics again and again. Okay, is that clear? So what is collective responsibility and what is your individual responsibility? Okay, I'll try to introduce them or talk about them at least once more so that it is sort of reinforced. Okay, so Article 74 done, which is about Council of Ministers will be there, headed by the Prime Minister, and the President has to follow or act according to the aid and advice of the President. Now, the President, again, it is not his discretion. He has to act, in accordance with such advice. What is Article 75? 75 talks about the fact that the Prime Minister is going to be appointed by the President. The ministers are going to be appointed by the President based on the recommendation of the Prime Minister. Okay, and the Council of Ministers are going to be collectively responsible to the lower house. Now, Article 78, meaning we are going to talk about the duties of the Prime Minister. In the duties of the Prime Minister, can we talk about these? To communicate to the President all the decisions of the Council of Ministers relating to administration. So the first thing, right? We've talked about this. Now we are only sort of associating it with Article 78. So to communicate with the President all the decisions of the Council of Ministers. So PM, President, and then we have Council of Ministers. Right? So this is a liaison. Information. To furnish information regarding the affairs of administration that the President may call for. At the same time, submit for the consideration of the Council of Ministers a decision that has been taken by a minister. So minister, again, same thing. Minister has decided and then, sends it to the President. The President decides to send it to the Council of Ministers. Hey guys, please reconsider. If you're okay with this thing, then you bring it back to me. Okay. So that is your Article 78. So 74, 75, and 78, they talk about the responsibilities of the Prime Minister. Okay. Is that clear? Okay, I think I have touched upon almost every single important aspect in this chapter. But again, do give it a reading. Okay, give it a proper sort of, reading. Do not miss out on a single sort of a line. And, you will not regret having done that. Let's take a look at some questions, shall we? Consider the following statements. With respect to the duties of the Prime Minister in accordance with the Constitution of India. Where do we talk? Which article talks about the duties of the Prime Minister?
78.
Okay, wonderful. Now, to make rules for more convenient transaction of business of the government of India and for the allocation amongst the ministers of the said business. Option number 2, if the President so requires to submit for the consideration of the Council of Ministers any matter on which the decision has been taken by a minister, but the President feels that it has not been adequately sort of discussed or considered by the Council. What would be the answer?
Only 2.
Only 2.
Excellent. But if I ask you, can you please tell me why did you eliminate option A?
It's the function of president.
It is a function of President. So the convenient transaction of business. So yesterday's session we saw in the executive powers, I think this was like point number 3. Exact same sentence placed there, right? Exact same sentence placed there. So option number B is right. And I'm happy that, you have a very clear reason to eliminate your option 1. Excellent. So only B. Question number 2. Which of the following is constitutionally obligatory on the part of the Prime Minister of India? Which of the following is a constitutional obligation, okay, of the Prime Minister of India? Option number A, as the President is the supreme commander of the defense forces, the Prime Minister has to take all major decisions regarding defense only after prior approval from the President. Option number B, the Prime Minister has to communicate to the President all the decisions of the Cabinet relating to administration and any proposals regarding legislations. Option number C, as the ministers are appointed by the President, the Prime Minister has to go by the presidential discretion in the allocation of business amongst ministers, meaning in the allocation of portfolios amongst the members. Meaning what? The President will probably have some discretion in deciding which person has to get which sort of a ministry. Option number D, the Prime Minister, if he happens to be the leader of the party, not having the required majority, okay, that Prime Minister should prove his majority strength in both the Houses of Parliament within a period that is stipulated by the President. This is a question that I would place somewhere not in the easy section, but more so in the moderate section. And there are some reasons why. Okay, now go ahead, please.
Option B.
B for Bombay. Okay. Can I ask you how you sort of eliminated your option A, C, and D? Let's go with A.
The Prime Minister is the Supreme Commander of the Defense Forces.
Well, it is about the major decisions being taken, okay, especially with regard to the defense, okay, but with prior approval of the President. It is not so. We saw Article 74, 75, 78, right? What is it? There is going to be a Council of Ministers headed by the Prime Minister, and they are the ones who advise the President to do whatever it is that he does. Okay, so it is not the other way around. You don't need prior sanction from the President to decide what has to be done, right? If you guys realize, if I asked you this question a year or two ago, which border do we have sort of issues with? Okay, especially with regards to, violence and, some deaths, right? 2 years ago, a year ago, you would have probably said it's Pakistan. Which border is a little problematic today?
China.
China is the border that is a little problematic as of today. Who is dealing with it? Is it our president, who's Mr. Kovind, or is it our prime minister? Our prime minister and defense minister. See, these are places where your prime minister and your defense minister, they are involved. Okay, and not with prior permission of the president. The president will just execute or approve whatever it is that the executive chooses, or the prime minister and the defense minister, they sort of choose to do. Option number C. Why did you reject option number C? Why did you eliminate option number C? As the ministers are appointed by the president, the prime minister has to go by the presidential discretion in the allocation of business amongst the ministers.
It's not a discretion function of the president. It's the Prime Minister who actually recommends the president in order to place a minister for any ministerial post.
That is excellent, Manvi. Okay, excellent. Okay, very well reasoned as well. Okay, and option number D. Why did you reject option number D? Why did you eliminate option number D? The prime minister, if he happens to be the leader of a party, not having a required majority, the prime minister should prove his majority or her majority strength in both the houses of the parliament within this period stipulated by the president.
It's not both
I think it is by parliamentary convention.
One by one, if I can. So somebody said it is parliamentary convention. Okay, and another one of what you had just said was, what is the other one that you mentioned? Go ahead, please.
I'm not sure, but I thought they need to prove the confidence in Lok Sabha, not both the houses.
Okay, okay. So a lot of interesting points coming out. Okay, and again, you don't have to preface your statements with "I am not sure." Of course, you're not sure. Okay, because that's why we are having these sessions. Okay, so it is fine. Whatever you say, I know that is what you feel. You think that is the best logic. Okay, so no need to make that disclaimer. Okay, no worries at all, and nobody's judging. Okay, everybody's in the same boat or similar boats. Now think about this. Having said that, there are a few things wrong here. Okay, first thing is the period stipulated by the president. In fact, we talked about 1 month. Now that could be one aspect. And second thing is exactly what you mentioned, right? It is not about the president, if it happens to be a leader of the party not having the required majority, should prove his majority strength in the lower house. Okay, so that is that. But however, this statement, your B is correct. Your B is correct. Okay, so you've eliminated this, eliminated this, eliminated this. I hope you're actually coming in through your process of elimination. Okay, through your process of elimination. Okay, so vote of confidence for a new leader has to be within 1 month and it is only in Lok Sabha. So statement D is incorrect. And then you can go with your option number B. This is mentioned in the very first page of your Prime Minister chapter. In my book, it'll be 20.1. In yours, just see Prime Minister chapter, whichever it is, and the very first page, left-hand side, bottom. Left-hand side, bottom. Okay, good, 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 good. Which of the following bodies are held by the Prime Minister? National Integration Council, National Water Resource Council, National Development Council, Interstate Council, and zonal councils. Forget number 3. So National Development Council was something that used to be there during the Planning Commission era, not necessarily now, but we have the others. What would be the right answer here?
1, 2, and 4.
1, 2, and 4. Meaning you say there is no 5? Is that what you say? So in terms of elimination, you're going with no 5
Yes.
and the others. So that leaves you an option C. Okay. Can you also tell me who is the head of the zonal council?
Home Minister.
Home Minister.
Home Minister. Wonderful. You know what? You guys are very strong candidates for prelims, clearing prelims this year. Now, take a look at your zonal council. Okay, just to. So in case, you're going to solve these sort of questions, again, look at every single option and find out why an option is right or why an option is wrong. If possible, try to go and revisit that topic in Laxmikanth. Okay, so if you look at the zonal council, okay, it is present in your chapter number, interstate relations chapter, whatever it is in your book. Okay, so the chairman is the Union Home Minister. He is the chairman of these councils. So vice chairman, the chief ministers of all the states in each zone, okay, they act as vice chairman of the zonal council for that particular zone. Okay, and it is by rotation, and each of them holding office for a certain amount of time, which is going to be a year at a time. Then you have again members, chief ministers, and 2 other members, and nominated by the governor of each of the states, and 2 members from union territories, and so on and so forth. Okay, but the main idea here is it's the home minister and not the prime minister. Okay, next. The Constitution of India lays down the proposals for legislation that are to be communicated to the president by the dash.
Prime Minister.
Okay, so you guys remember this, right? Just try to just remember this. You have the president. The president's job is not to directly deal with the Council of Ministers. Okay, it is going to be the Prime Minister. Okay, and then the Council of Ministers. Prime Minister is the head of the Council of Ministers. He has a free hand, or she has a free hand in the distribution of portfolios, can reshuffle the ministers and ask any minister to resign, is bound by the advice of ministers, and advises the ministers in day-to-day administration of the ministries.
Option C.
C would be 1, 2, and 4. So meaning you are sort of eliminating, or you're comfortable eliminating option number 3. Anybody else?
Option C.
Option, sorry?
C.
C for, okay, Calcutta. Okay. All right. So that means you're eliminating third one. Okay. Anybody else? No. Actually, the right answer is option A. In fact, you have these sort of ministers so that you do not have to deal with day-to-day administration and, advising them in day-to-day administration. You can give them the vision and get them to sort of deliver on that, to execute that, but you don't tend to get involved in the day-to-day sort of administration. But however, okay, so let's say that is eliminated, but take a look at this. He has or she has a free hand in distribution of portfolios. Yes, they do. The prime minister gets to decide who is fit for which sort of ministry, even if that person is not a member of parliament yet. Okay, and if you're not a minister of if you're not a member of the parliament, you can still be a minister for 6 months, but within those 6 months you have to find a way to become a member of parliament. Now that can happen, as Rahul just mentioned a little while ago. It could be through by-elections. Somebody has passed away, somebody has resigned, something along those lines, and in that particular constituency, midway through the term, they have another election in which you can get elected there. Or if it is something that we're talking about, like in the center, you always have the route of Rajya Sabha. And in Rajya Sabha, every 2 years you have members retiring and new members coming in. So you would probably introduce somebody who you think could be a good addition to your, your ministry. One such example recently has been your S. Jaishankar. In fact, the finance minister in the previous term was, who was the finance minister in the previous term, guys?
Chidambaram.
In the previous term, 2014 to 2019, was Jetli. Arun Jetli, right? Arun Jetli. He lost an election in Amritsar. Okay, and he lost to Captain Amrinder Singh, right? So he did not enter through Lok Sabha, but he was still made a finance minister. And you know why he was made a finance minister? In fact, Jetli, for a long duration, okay, in the last 10 years, he was almost like a shadow minister. Okay, shadow minister is something that we don't have in India, but you have more of that in Britain. A shadow minister is somebody who sort of concentrates on a particular ministry, so that whatever the ruling party is going to decide, the ruling party is going to sort of bring some rules, this, that, okay, it'll be Arun Jetli on this end, the opposition voice, who is going to criticize the moves of the finance ministry. So he has been involved in the finance ministry, or at least in terms of, keenly observing the finance ministry for a long duration. And hence he was made a minister like that. If you look at it, there is a finance minister from Tamil Nadu, from the recent DMK government. His name is PTR, Parnivel Tyagarajan or something like that. Okay, I think his name is right, Parnivel Tyagarajan. PTR, that's how he goes by. So apparently he was quite involved in criticizing the previous government, especially when it comes to the finance side. So he seemed to be a natural fit. But however, he won election and he came. But Jetli was an example that I was talking about, and S. Jaishankar. So Jetli, again, we want to put some faces to what we study. So remember these examples, you will not forget. So Idi right, and this is wrong. Okay. So the option is going to be your 10A. Let's do a few more. It's 9 o'clock. Just a few more, guys. Okay, so just bear with me. Which of the following are included in Article 78 of the Indian Constitution that we just discussed? Defining the duties of the Prime Minister, to communicate to the President all the decisions of the Council of Ministers relating to the administration of the affairs of the Union and the proposals for legislation. to take prior presidential sanction for the budget, okay, before submitting it in the parliament, to furnish the information called for by the president regarding the administration of the affairs of the union. If the president so requires, to submit for the consideration of the Council of Ministers a matter on which the minister has taken a decision without submitting the same for the consideration by the council, the rest of the council, beforehand. So what would be the right answer here?
Option B.
Option B, which is 1, 3, and 4. So
Option
that
B.
means option, okay, so and the first person who just mentioned, was that Bombay or Delhi?
Bombay.
So I see somebody going for Bombay, somebody going for Delhi, right? So that means one person has eliminated point number 2. Okay, the other person has also sort of eliminated point number 2. In fact, Supriya also has gone for Bombay. So 2 persons here. What about option number 4? Okay, there seems to be a small little confusion between eliminating option number 4 or keeping option number 4 as your answer. If the president so requires, to submit for the consideration of the ministers a matter on which a minister has taken a decision without submitting the same for proper consideration by the council beforehand. Aishwarya, were you the one who went for Delhi? D? Why did you feel option number 4 is incorrect?
I read it wrong.
Okay, okay. So generally you will notice that if you see article number 78 once again, okay, article number 78 has 3 subclauses. Okay, point number 1, point number 3, and point number 4, ditto, word to word, verbatim. Okay, and that's how generally even in your exam you will notice. In your exam also you will notice it is along the very same lines. Okay, so the more familiarity you have, in fact you will know that it cannot be 4, because you remember reading only 3 in that article number 78. Article number 78, which deals with the duties of the Prime Minister. Okay, so you know the option has to be something that has 3 in it, 3 options in it. It is not something that has 2 options in it. It is not something that has 4 options in it. Okay, so it will become very evident. Okay, and after a point, you will be able to start guessing better as well. Okay, but again, today you have been able to answer a lot of these questions, and you've answered them quite well. Okay, so are you feeling more confident?
All right, guys, so that brings us to the close of our video. Thank you for watching, and I hope that you found the video to be useful. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the very next video.